Welcome to Men, Menopause, and Miracles, the podcast where we explore what it really means to feel strong in midlife, not just when life is smooth, but when it stretches you, challenges you, and asks you to meet yourself in entirely new ways. Today's conversation sits right at the edge because at some point in midlife, the strategies that once worked, pushing through, thinking your way out, staying in control, stop working. And what replaces them isn't always obvious. Sometimes it starts in the most unexpected place, like your breath. In this episode, we're talking about fear, anxiety, physical pain, and the moment that forces you out of your comfort zone and into something deeper, into your body, your resilience, and your capacity to adapt. And about what it means to stop avoiding discomfort and instead learn how to move through it. I'm Suzanne, your host and your midlife wingwoman. I am here to help you navigate this season of life with more awareness, more intention, and a deeper connection to your body, especially when it's asking you to do things differently. If you've been feeling the tension between who you've been and who you're becoming, this conversation is going to meet you right there. So let's get into it. This is episode 49, Resilience, Learning to Love the Hard Things. Today's
Mm.
guest is living proof that mind over matter isn't just a concept, it's a way of living that invites you to do the very things you once avoided. Ron Drews has built a remarkable career behind the scenes of some of the world's biggest productions, from the Olympics to Star Wars, American Idol, and the Grammy Awards, earning multiple technical Emmy awards along the way. But what's most compelling about Ron isn't just what he's built, it is how he chooses to live. His path has taken him to extreme environments, deep personal challenges, and ultimately into the work he now shares: breath work, cold exposure, and mindful living as tools of resilience, clarity, and vitality. Today, we'll explore what happens when a man who has spent decades building, achieving, and performing at high levels is brought face to face with some physical limitations, anxiety, and the unknown, and how that led him into breath work, cold exposure, and a completely different relationship with challenge. So, welcome, Ron. So glad you're here today.
Suzanne, thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast. I've seen it and listened to it over the last 7, 8, 9 months. You're doing wonderful work here.
Thank you. Thank you. And you are my second male guest on here, which is very exciting for me to just open the midlife conversation to what it's about. It's about both men and women having this unique experience in this season of change and among other things. And you lived across a lot of different arenas, like whether it's business, family, extreme environments. Where would you say right now, where you are in the midlife meter, how would you describe this season for you?
Right in the middle of midlife. I don't think it's done with me yet. And I'll call you and tell you when it is. Um,
Okay.
it's just kind of like being on a river. And as I'm floating along, there's a lot of new things that I'm seeing. I get excited about. I'm interested in. I just retired out from 37 years in the entertainment industry on the electronic side of the business. Uh, Wonderful, stressful, provided an amazing life for me and my family. And now I'm on the other side of that. Um, from the
Yeah.
last few years, I've been out exploring, doing things that I never thought I would do, um, and enjoying it an awful lot.
Nice. Yeah, I like to say sometimes I mean, I'm in midlife, but in my 50s, and I feel like I have 20 something energy again. It's all that newness and curiosity, but kind of mirrored with or matched with some wisdom. So it's fun and exciting, a little scary, but there's new things to be experienced. And I loved your thought of the river, floating on the river.
Yeah. Um, it's an exciting life. Um, and I would say an age appropriate life.
Nice.
I'm not settling into the TV, but I'm not doing things that a 62-year-old man should not be doing either.
You could check those
And
off
that,
your list.
yeah, that's financially as well as physically, mentally and emotionally, spending more time with family, things
Nice.
like that.
Yeah, and tell us so our listeners can get to know you a little bit about your family.
I've got two brothers, a younger and an older brother. Uh, Wiser on one side, smarter on the other. Um, Somehow I got right in the middle. I've got three amazing kids. My oldest, Luke, is in Nashville. He's an electrician. He was a champion mixed martial arts fighter for many years. Then COVID hit. He moved out there, got married, started a new career. My middle boy, Brandon, is in Florida. He's an emergency room nurse there. He has two beautiful girls and a wife. And then my daughter, Jessie, once the boys moved out of state, she moved back. And she is now a teacher's assistant at an autistic school, and her group is the nonverbal group. So she picked quite a challenging life, but she's got more energy than I've seen in her in years. And she's also a improv artist. Again,
Nice.
outside of what any of us would have expected from her. Uh,
That's
but
fun.
her anxiousness and her timidness and introvertedness, somehow she gravitated towards that, did the exact opposite, and is
Wow.
and grown an amazing following from that. And of course, my awesome wife, Christiana, I call her my velvet hammer. She gives me the information straight up, but with a soft mallet, and I need that, and I love it. And we met on an airplane. Gosh, it'll be 11 years in June. Completely random, completely random. Um,
Yes.
and we've been together ever since that moment.
Yeah, I love that story, and that's how we know each other is through your beautiful wife, but I love every time she tells that story. I have actually one other friend that has a similar story, just that unexpected meet cute of meeting their person on a plane, having a conversation, and life's changed, forever on that path of love and relationships. So that's so cool.
Well, it's I've learned to follow my intuition. It was taught out of me at a young age. And it was 4 years before I met her. I woke up, I had a dream. I wanted to work with Tony Robbins. And I didn't know how, but the universe brought me this guy about a year later, who it turns out I hired. And after I hired him, I asked him what he used to do. And he said he used to work for Tony Robbins. They were sitting on a loading dock in New Orleans in the middle of summer, right after a concert by a trash bin, and it was just nasty, and we're sweating bullets. And he tells me this, and just the lights came on. Um, and so I pursued that for another 2 years, and they finally gave me a chance. And then a year later, I'm in a room with Tony Robbins in Florida in the middle of nowhere, and it's just him and I and his producer. And my dream came true. But
That's
it
so
turns out
cool.
maybe it wasn't really about meeting Tony Robbins. Maybe it was about putting me in this place to meet Christiana
Yeah.
and change my life that way, because that was the most impactful. And now I watch her with her life she's a nurse and a mentor and a teacher, changing young women's lives. So
Yeah.
maybe it's about that, but it's just kind of following the flow, just being in the river and paying attention as you float along.
Yeah. I think when we first connected, you shared something powerful that you don't typically grow inside your comfort zone. And for you, what finally was there a time or moment that changed your way of looking at challenges and then avoiding them and partnering with them? Was it many little, steps to get there?
Uh, I've always enjoyed the extreme sports. And when I was younger, I enjoyed the adrenaline it gave me. I skied freestyle for Squaw Valley. Um, they've changed their name now, but I skied freestyle for them. And then I went to college in Boulder, Colorado, and skied for a ski resort up there freestyle. And I loved the adrenaline and the excitement, and I loved the fear. And um, what's happened over the years is as I get older, I become more anxious. And so those things that I used to get excited about create anxiety and trepidation. But how I feel when I get through those is pretty significant. I have a feeling of connection and a belonging and overcoming. And so what that does, that helps build confidence in everything else. So if I'm really good in one area and I'm involved and I'm present, it tends to leak into everything else in my life.
Yeah, I love that.
So there wasn't a time. It's been gradual, and I've started reading the science of it. What happens when we do challenging things? What happens to our brain? And how from tens of thousands of years ago that's what kept us alive. And now we have since the advent of the smartphone and things with kids have been slowly going down. Suicide's been on the increase, but when 2010 hit in the smartphone, that's when things really took a steep curve, and anxiety really um,
Took
just
off.
blew up.
Yeah.
And it has to be, and it has to do with the dopamine that our brain creates, and dopamine without work becomes actually caustic to the system.
Mm,
And we start to become more anxious, and we start to
mm.
withdraw more.
Yeah, I was gonna say so many people try, and I know I can attest to having anxiety. I think many people try to think their way out of it, and you've taken a different route into the body. What changed for you when you stopped maybe trying to solve it mentally and tapped into the connection with your body? How did that come about for you?
Well, I think it's similar to meeting Tony Robbins and having this thought to buy this particular ticket that I didn't want to buy, but I ended up buying, and meeting Christiana. It's just following the intuition. Um, it intuitively just knew that it felt good. Um,
Mm,
most people are feel good junkies. We look for things that help us to feel good, but the reward from eating a piece of cake is very short lived. There's the sugar high and the rush you get from that, but then there's a crash after it. And I got tired of the crash. You know, binging a television show feels good in the moment because you're not present. You're out.
mhm,
You've got this distraction, but at the end of it,
mm,
there's nothing that we gain from it versus a workout or going to the gym or going for a run or for a hike. There's a reward that comes after that. I don't like
yeah,
to swim. I don't like to work out at swimming, but I don't think there's another exercise that I do where I feel as good as I do than after a good long swim. And so I swim.
yeah. And that
And
one really ties in with the breath. I mean, I feel being a swimmer is a different connection with the breath than if I went for a run or a walk or did,
mm,
I don't know, cycling, indoor cycling for me. Maybe because I'm not a swimmer, and so I realize that swimming
mm,
for me requires, like, a real focus on the breath because 'cause you're holding your breath while you're underwater. So,
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's meditative. It takes me out of myself. It takes me out of my head. And when I focus on one thing, um, it becomes a meditation. And all of the other things kind of filter away the stress of life, money, relationships, work, whatever it is, it becomes pretty singular. And swimming, for instance, is the breath. Stroke, stroke, breathe in, exhale, stroke, breathe in, exhale. Um, and so it's a similar relief you may get from binge watching something, but at the end of it, it's a wildly different outcome. And I
yeah,
want to do more of that when I do that um,
yeah,
in a healthy way.
yeah. How did you first find breath work, and what kind of made you the point that you said to trust it, to kind of, commit to it or go into it and using it regularly?
Mm. Well, I found um, breath work through a physical trainer, a guy named Rhett. I had three bulging discs, and one of them ruptured and made me immobile. And so I went to a few surgeons, and the first two suggested surgery. We can fuse it, go in from the front, and then there's obviously ramifications. But I went to a third surgeon down in Marina Del Rey, and he said, "Yes." He goes, "The challenge with the spine is we don't always know where the problem is. So if we go in and fix this, it may not fix your problem. And there's some ways we can start to deduce that through shots and things like that, cortisone shots to see what works and what doesn't." He goes, "Or you could take a year or two and see what you can do on the physical rehab." And I picked option two. So I found this gym in the valley that works with athletes, professional athletes, collegiate, and they took me in. And this guy taught me um, this work that I'd never experienced before. And took me to, it took 7 months of pain and crying when I had to bend over the sink just to shave, just that little movement, my eyes would start to water. 7 months, and I felt better, and I could move again. And he was the one that introduced me to XPT, which is Laird Hamilton. He's the big wave surfer.
Mhm.
His partner was teaching a class way out in the valley somewhere. It was the middle of winter. It was cold as heck. And um, we all laid out and we did breath work for an hour. And after the first 5 minutes of it, I was gone. I was out of my mind. I was just, I mean, I was part of the earth. I had no worries. I had no other thoughts. All I was focused on was the breath and the count. And that was amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I was hooked. And then we went and we did pool work, and the pool was 56 degrees, which is ice cream headache temperature. Um, and I watched athletes freeze up and not be able to swim a lap. And I watched other people who were less tied up in their head succeed. And so I followed that one. Like, don't think about it, just do it. And then we
Mm,
did the 3-4 minutes in a big bucket of ice. And it was an experience. And I brought that back, and I hired that guy, Mark, to uh, come and put on workshops at my house. And that's when we
yeah.
started funneling people through. We do a hour of breath, an hour of pool, half hour of ice, barbecue, communication, connection. I started to learn more and more science about it. And the science got me hooked.
What
That's,
what do you, well, and also healing, anytime you could do something where it works for you, it has that powerful connection. What made
mm,
you want to bring it to other men, and what were you seeing in their experiences?
well, I lit up like a Christmas tree that day. And I got to watch other people light up. And there's science behind that. What happens chemically to the brain when we witness someone else light up like that, we have the same chemical reaction and we start to drop serotonin and dopamine. And I love that. And it seems, what do we call it? It's a high value um, response. And so when you teach somebody who's never done breath, you go from here to here very quickly. And when you're working with an elite athlete, to make that 1% jump, it's this much. But when you take, just your
Mm,
average person and put them through their first session, it's this kind of growth.
wow.
Um, and and people get really turned on. And I've had dozens and dozens of people just said they never felt that way. We had one kid, we came out, and a good friend of mine helps me teach these classes as well, Ross Miller. Um, and he brought a kid with him, and we worked him out for the 3 hours. And he stood up and he goes, and he was pissed. He goes, "What the hell? My parents have never done anything like this, and how come I can't date?" And he was full of words. He'd been exposed to something that he had no idea existed, and that was my experience. He was just a little more vocal, and so that's why I like love bringing it to other people.
Yeah.
It's
You're
watching people turn on.
Yeah, there must be a teacher, a healer, an element or a connection element within you. I know that yeah, when I experience something amazing, I always want to share it with as many people as possible to get to have that same beautiful experience, especially when it comes to healing and love and connection.
Mm,
That's a powerful thing.
it and no, that's a really powerful circle. The connection, the community. Um, that happens from those things, and our DNA is built that way. That's how we heal, and 300-400 years ago, that's how we survived. We had to have a community or we couldn't survive.
What led you through that to then connect with the popular Wim Hof?
Um, so I began doing. I got certified in XPT with Laird Hamilton, his course, and all of that, and continue to teach it. And Wim Hof he's a character. And he's become the de facto spokesman for breath work. He's just he's out there. And I got to meet him last year. Ross and I went to Poland to spend a week with him. But his methodology is good and it's impactful. He also teaches his course, and I've got some certifications in that, and looking for the next level right now. But he just kind of makes it fun, and he had this thing on YouTube that you could do. It was like an 11-minute um, protocol. And what happens with myself and most people as well, when they do the breath work, it becomes a tunnel for a meditative state. I always thought I'd been able to meditate and kind of get into that peaceful. But when I did breath work and then just sat in that for the next 5, 10, 15 minutes after, things changed.
Yeah,
And it was amazing. And during COVID, I didn't go to work. I mean, I worked from home. I didn't go into the office anymore. And my wife and I did 127 days in a row of breath work and meditation together.
wow.
Like not me and her, but we do it on the couch, inside, outside, on the floor. We do the 11, 12 minutes of breath work. It would just drop us down, and we would go into a meditation anywhere from 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. And it was certainly impactful personally, but as a couple, it was a wildly new experience, um, and just kind of cracks you open.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, and I know there's some people on here who may have never even looked up breath work, experienced it. I know I've experienced it a few times, and when I'm new to it, it feels like such a workout because I'm not used to
Mm,
connecting with my body and breath that way. And recently, a trainer friend of mine had me doing the Wim Hof on YouTube and just his small, 3 sets of breath. But the thing that I really loved was when he has you do the hold, I was
mm,
amazed just by doing it for the first or second time that my ability to hold my breath and be present increased pretty quickly. And so,
mm,
yeah, it is quite impressive. It kind of reminds me of how you said how it just, there was a change that occurred and you
mm,
were, hooked on why hasn't anyone you know, uh, like that guy, "Why hasn't anyone told me about this before? This great thing
right?
that can be so restorative, healing, all the things," and especially, like you said, in our culture where anxiety is really high. I know my nieces are in their 20s
Mm,
particular, she runs anxious, and I really try to connect with her on we're very fortunate to live in a time. I mean, the one positive of social media is that we have access to so
mm.
many things that can be helpful for us, for sure. And I know, on the extreme side, you've done a lot of fun things like, climbing Kilimanjaro, swimming across Alcatraz, all these things. I mean, we could have stories for days, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the physical setbacks you had because you've done some of these things with physical
Mm.
setbacks. And talk to us just how do you set your mind to doing that with physical pain? I don't know if you had the breath work training already or that came after the
So
fact.
the breath work came after. Um, and as you talk about breath work and Wim Hof and anxiety, Wim Hof has brought the breath work to the forefront. But what it's really brought to light is how improperly people breathe. They look at their phone, their jaw drops. You've heard the term mouth breathers in the movies. It's not a kind term.
Mm.
And what happens when we breathe through the mouth constantly like that, it does give us the brain fog and it makes us a little stupid and it creates a tremendous amount of anxiety. And by just breathing in and out through your nose, you have the ability to control that um, by accessing your autonomic nervous system, your parasympathetic system, or your sympathetic system. So when you breathe through the mouth, you're activating the sympathetic system, which is your fight and flight, which is really important. You see the runners, they're running with their mouth open, sprinting. It's necessary, but it's not necessary when you're having a conversation. And it puts you in an activated, elevated, chemically different state. And as you were talking about earlier, you can't think your way out of a chemically elevated state. And this is just normal stuff when we show up breathing heavy through the mouth. When we breathe through the nose, we're activating the parasympathetic state. And we breathe through the nose, we go into the lower lobes of the lungs. And there is an activation node in there that accesses that state. Mouth, upper, nose, lower. When we breathe in through the nose in the nasal cavity, that's where a majority of the nitric oxide is produced. So we start to introduce that into the system. That's also calming. It's also an microbial, antibacterial, and it's also a vasodilator. So it makes your pipes, 2 miles of pipes, it enlarges them. Your heart rate goes down, your blood pressure goes down, and you inherently become calmer. So if you need to have an important conversation, it's in and out through the nose. If you are about to start a big hike or a challenge, um, bring yourself down, just breathing through your nose, and it changes us chemically. And again, it's hard to fight that. And so, 2 minutes of proper breathing through the nose can change an interaction, it can change a connection. It helps us to become present. Um, And when we're present, connected, those things start to change.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a powerful nugget. I mean, I wasn't even aware of that, but just the amount of power that we have in knowing that for life, through things that we do.
We don't release oxygen molecules into our system without the buildup of carbon dioxide. And you can't build up carbon dioxide breathing through your mouth unless you're in a full sprint. So when you're breathing through your mouth, air's going in, air's going out, oxygen's not getting released. You get tired. Playing with your phone in the afternoon, people get sleepy. When they get sleepy, they start to eat. There's this whole chain of, you crave sugar, whole chain of events that happens.
Mm.
When you breathe in and out through your nose, you create the pressure. Um, it's regulated. You can control your breath much better through the nose. So carbon dioxide builds up, starts releasing oxygen molecules in your body.
Wow. Very powerful. I love that. Thank you for making us aware. And so prior to the breath work, you had a lot of physical setbacks like ruptured discs,
Yes.
loss of mobility. What did you what were your tools then before breath work? How did you move through, get through pain?
The first time, well, my back, when my back would go out, I had three bulging discs and I'd irritate it and it would start to expand into the spinal cord and would take me out where I was on the floor and couldn't move for a couple of days. And it happened one Christmas, 2009 or 2010, and I'm laying on the floor and I'm looking at the Christmas tree and the presents from like the height. And work is stressful. And I just thought, I can't live this way anymore. I just can't live this way. And I sat on my computer and started playing around. And I'm not sure where it was. Maybe it was a previous thought, but Kilimanjaro came into my head and I started looking at it. And it was, I don't know, 15th, 16th, 20th, something like that. And I thought, fuck, in 1 year, I'm going to be on Kilimanjaro. And the power of setting a goal, all things heaven and earth move. And so
Mm,
I said it then. I called my buddies. All three of them said, yep, we're in. And of course, when it came down to send their deposit, only one said yes. So me and my good
wow.
buddy Dean, we set the date to go in December to Kilimanjaro. And from that point, everything I did was to reduce the risk of a back problem. And I got into hot yoga, uh,
Mm,
stretching. I did more light weights. I ran less. Running's great for the cardiovascular, but it's really rough on the system. And I've run a couple of marathons over the years, and I think it just did more damage than good. And so
yeah.
I've been getting a little smarter. Maybe that was the beginning of midlife. I got a little smarter.
Like, let's
Yeah,
not do that. Yeah.
but I was
Um,
worried. I was worried about my back going out the whole trip.
sure.
And fear and anxiety is a massive stress response to the body. The body cannot help but respond, and it responds with inflammation and tightness, and um, it was a problem. I was instead of enjoying the trip, I was scared. Um, and I did enjoy the trip. And there were moments, the first 3 days it rained and we were 12,000 feet and it was starting to freeze and we had no dry clothes. And it was horrible. I just shook all night long and I thought, I'm going to fucking shake my back out of whack and I'm going to be wet and dead. The next morning we woke up though and the sun was out. We spent the half day just drying our clothes in the wind and on we went. We ended up summiting, and it was an amazing, amazing experience. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it
When
was
you shared that,
by the time we
go
got to
ahead.
altitude around 19,000 feet, it was literally a step at a time. It was a step, stop for an hour, but hugely rewarding, hugely rewarding.
I was just going to say, when you were sharing that, it was interesting that you initially talked about how you were so attracted to extreme sports. And that what goes through my mind is just in some way, it seems like you were still using what you knew you're passionate about to get through the pain that you were going through, to
Mm,
heal in some way. And most people would think those 2 things are contradictory to each
mm,
other, like, "No, that's
right.
not for you anymore. Don't be looking that stuff up."
Yeah.
But you're looking up Kilimanjaro. I've got
Yeah.
green scripture.
I
So,
can't tell you how many trips I've taken where on the way down I swore I would never do it again. And I've called Christiana half dozen times. I'm like, mark this. I'm never doing this again. I'm
okay.
done. Remind me. And then we go and do it again.
You go and do it again. Well, I love to say, do it while you can because life is a gift
Mm,
and opportunities are there um, for when they're to be had. And then there's times in life when they're no longer available. So if it, I guess they keep presenting themselves. I do love
mm,
how you even shared that, which I think some people struggle with is it could be any age, but it's making that decision in the unknown. Anything can happen a year from now, but and then after that, as you shared one person, the commitment to the decision that you've made. And I love that. That's such a great I don't know if there's any other way to grow and know yourself as a human being than doing those 2 things.
yeah. Yeah. I find when I'm outdoors away from the phone and I'm in a physically stressful environment, something new, I find myself because
Nice.
everything else has been stripped away. And the only thing that's left is just me and my thoughts.
I love
And I
that.
find myself. And that is a remarkably beautiful event when that happens. And it always
Especially in
happens.
Yeah, and especially in today's world, I think we have to keep reminding people because, I tried to do a little digital detox on my social in
Mm,
December, and I just always say it's a way to get your thoughts back. We don't realize how our thoughts are being fed to us or kind of hijacked by other people's thoughts and feelings and ideas, and just to have your own thoughts.
mm,
And be with those is kind of could be a little foreign for some, depending on how much you're on that stuff. And for you, I know when I hit midlife, I think coming off a CrossFit, inflammation, not balancing it out well, my body being in fight or flight, my body just all at once felt like it was in a car crash. A lot of
mm,
immobility, a lot of pain. Walking was a challenge to walk normal. Things were just so tight all over. And that did something for me psychologically, I think was more painful than the physical pain. So for you, on a man's perspective, going through pain, how did that affect your mind? What do you use to kind of overcome that? It sounds like it was before you came into knowing breath. So I don't know how you worked through that.
yeah. I had to strip down where the pain was coming from. And when we're younger, there's a lot of things we can get away with, and the price we pay is negligible. But they start to stack up as you get older. So let's just say when I hit midlife, whenever that was, I couldn't eat the way I used to eat, um, which is a significant um, inhibitor of from all those things I do want to do. And the first thing that I found in nutrition was wheat and gluten um, and sugar. I use sugar for stress. I mean, I drink coffee for anxiety, which makes no sense, but it's kind of my warm go-to. But sugar near the end of every year, business, end of the year, numbers, clients, gifts, all that stuff, my stress would go up. And I found myself eating a pack of good and plenty or hot tamales. And God, it felt good in the moment to get me through it, but I'd feel horrible after that. And it was 8 years ago, I think. Um, and so I'm done. And what I did is I took gluten out of my diet because gluten's in literally every crappy food that's available to us. So I thought, well, let's just create crop food. So if it's got gluten, I can't eat it. And if it's got sugar, I don't eat it. And I did that for 2 weeks. And what happened in 2 weeks? Um, I added an hour and a half of sleep onto my day or night. My anxiety reduced from, 80% down to 10%. I stopped nodding off in the afternoons. My memory got better. All of these amazing things happened. So once I could kind of get to that baseline, then I could start to really understand where it hurt in my shoulders, my back, my knee, and then I could start to address that. And that was really for me is just because I don't want to treat the wrong thing. I don't want to start taking medication when really it's sugar that makes all my joints hurt, and my
Yeah,
joints stopped hurting. And
yeah.
so getting
Wow.
to that baseline was really important for me 8 or so years ago, and I got so involved, and maybe that was the beginning of the breath work and ice. I ended up getting educated through IIN and really just delving into it. Um, so yeah,
Yeah,
I think that baseline's important to figure out
yeah.
how to
And
deal
I
with the next pain.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask you what midlife has taught you about your body that you didn't understand in your 30s and 40s, but I think you just very well described that.
Mm,
One, I had a female, a guest on last week that talked about, I talk a lot about the overdrive. Then that's
mm,
no longer available in this model of midlife. And it took her a long time to listen to her body. It was just like, thank you very
mm,
much, but I've got all these things to do. And when you can hit overdrive, or like you said, in your 20s or 30s, there's no cost, there's no price
mhm,
yet to be paid, but the bill does come later
right?
on.
It
Years
does.
later. Um, what, for women listening, many who or men, women or men who are navigating physical and emotional changes, w I mean, what do you think that most people don't understand yet about what they're going through? So, this could be people you see that come into your workshop that they
Mm,
don't yet understand.
gosh, patience. We've grown up in a society where we can take a pill and things will be fixed. Um, the whole Las Vegas, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, all that shit's ridiculous. There are no quick fixes, and the only way to the other side is really through, in my experience. And so what I've found is patience. If I get injured, I have to have patience and give my time because as you so eloquently said, we just, the check comes and we got to pay the bill. And it used to be a much longer timeline years ago, but now, so training for something is patience. I can't get fit in a day, week, or a month. So when I do like the Alcatraz swim or Nepal or the JMT, I started 6 months out, not 2 months like I used to. So it was
Mm,
a very slow burn. And if I get um, waylaid, it's not forever. And so my
mhm,
my brain, if something happens, I tend to go, oh well, God, this is forever. And
mm.
it's not. A bad
Right.
day does not mean a bad week, and a bad week is not a bad month, and a bad month is really not a bad life. But I can catastrophize things pretty quickly. And so I have to have patience with myself, give my patience to
Mm,
stretch things out. So my advice for anybody is, and it's just let things take their time.
yeah.
Less willful action, I think, more river,
More river,
less
I love
willful.
that. That is we're gonna keep that one. Um, I like to say I typically say, "The ocean, I'm riding the wave of life, and I don't wanna get pulled under, and I just wanna be able to stay on top." Yeah, if someone is standing on the edge of a decision that they've been avoiding, because again, I love the way you described how you make a decision and you put it out there as a almost like a step in faith.
Mm,
And there's again, I think many people that live in limbo, maybe they're waiting on something to make a
mm.
decision. What would you say to them about what's some words of wisdom on making a decision?
Well, Hunter S. Thompson, when he was 25, a friend of his wrote a letter to him asking him for advice. And he said, well, who am I to give advice? I'm 25. I don't have that much life. But since you asked, and he was asking him about a decision, and it's a beautiful letter, but basically he says, if you don't make a decision in life, life will make one for you. And
Good one.
oftentimes, one of procrastination is a horrible decision and outcome. And staying in that indecision is caustic for the system, the mental,
Mhm.
emotional, and spiritual system. It- As I've come to personally understand it and feel it. And I love that letter. And I send it out to all my good friends every year just to remind them that, we have to make decisions in life and make them quick.
Yeah.
And at the very least, we make a decision right away. We're not wasting a week, a month, or a year trying to figure something out. We'll know right away if it was the right one or wrong one.
Well, and that's
We
the thing in midlife as well. I value my time once I crossed over 50. Time has such a huge value, a price tag on it. I don't want to waste it. I want to utilize it. I definitely see it as a gift because I don't see it as expendable. I see it as it's not guaranteed. So how am I going to use it? More than money I feel can come and go, but time
mm,
cannot. Can't get it back. So I love what you shared. I'm going to do some few rapid fire closing questions and
okay.
just whatever comes top of mind here. Uh, no pressure. What does living well mean to you now?
Um, present, being present, being present is everything.
I love that. That's actually my word for the year, presence.
Yeah. It, it,
What's one
that, it,
Go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What are you gonna? Okay.
Um, being present is an indicator of happiness. Happiness is a byproduct of being present, which goes back to decision. If I'm in indecision, I'm not present.
Well, I'm glad you finished that because that was much more. That was like a added nugget to the word
Mm,
there, presence. Present. What's one practice you return to again and again when life feels uncertain?
breath, breath, meditation, then conversation with my wife. Yeah.
What's the first thing you do in your mornings?
Yeah. I'll look at the time on my phone. It's next to my bed. That's the first thing. Next thing, make my coffee, and then I'll generally do breath work. I got a group of guys. We'll do the breath work, and then we'll text a chain out. Accountability, let's call it that.
Hmm.
Accountability. And it's beautiful. Being
Nice.
accountable is beautiful.
Nice. What's the last thing you do in the evenings?
Mm, I roll. I roll.
Mhm.
I roll my legs and my back. Those big
Oh,
foam rollers.
yes.
Yep. And I sleep better.
Awesome.
I sleep better.
For
Again, something I
anyone that
don't like
needs
to do.
Yes, for anyone that needs that nugget because I'm guilty of the phone, but scroll, but I know, like, doing those things just to ease into better sleep, like, they're so
Mm,
small, it's like, "Oh, I don't wanna do it," but again, the gift you get on the other side is
right?
yeah, that's great.
Ritualistic. So when I roll, and then I'll read a book and go to sleep.
Nice, and if you could give one permission slip to someone in midlife right now, what would it be?
Mm, um, God, a good friend and mentor from so long ago told me this. He said, "Put the bat down. Just put the bat down for today. Give yourself a break. Put the bat down. Put it next to your bed. You wake up. You're welcome to pick it up. But for today, just give yourself a break and put it down."
That's a good one. That is a good one. Thank you so much, Ron, for sharing your wisdom and your stories and your world with us today. I greatly appreciate you for being here. Um, and whether you're wanting to reduce anxiety, struggling with your health and high stress levels, or simply looking for inspiration, you could find Ron at Best Life Breath Workshops by emailing him directly, rdrews, at the wellness number 7.com, or also find him on LinkedIn, and I'll add the details in the show notes. And I know, Ron, you have one of your Best Life Breath workshops coming up on, tell us
May
about it.
17th. Yeah. It'll be a 4.5 hour workshop, breath, some pool, little ice, a lot of science, connection and community. It's always a
Nice.
great group, and we cap it at 16.
Okay, awesome. Well, I will put those details in the show notes for anyone that is interested. Please check him out and what he offers, and maybe try something new. There's something powerful about realizing that strength isn't just about pushing harder. Sometimes it's about pausing, breathing, and choosing to meet yourself differently. In wrapping up today, here's what I hope you take away with you: that Ron's story reminds us that the edge we spend so much time avoiding is often the very place our strength is rebuilt, not by pushing harder, but by learning how to breathe, listen, and respond differently. It also reminds us that isn't a decline to manage, it's an invitation to relate to your body, your fear, and your life with a new kind of awareness, one that allows you to move forward with resilience, intention, and a deeper trust in yourself. If this episode sparked a new way of thinking about anxiety, breath, and believing that is good on the other side of your challenges, make sure to like, subscribe, or follow so you don't miss what's next. New episodes drop every Monday, and you can also now watch us on YouTube. And if someone you know is navigating midlife and pain, new or old, and wondering how to approach it in a new light, share this episode with them. Send them love. Sometimes the right story arrives at the right time. I'm Suzanne, your host and your midlife wingwoman, and this is Men, Menopause, and Miracles. I'll see you next Monday. Until then, take care and bye for now.